The story begins with a man named Terry Richmond riding his bicycle toward the court. However, while he is cycling, a police car hits him from behind. Two police officers step out of the car. Their names are Mark and Steve. They suspect Terry of being some kind of criminal. Terry tries to explain that he is on his way to the court to bail out his brother, but the officers don't listen to him and start searching his bag. In his bag, they find a large amount of money, about $30,000. Seeing such a huge sum, the officers accuse Terry of being involved in drug dealing. Terry tries to explain that this is his hard-earned money, which he is using to bail out his brother. However, the officers refuse to believe him. Steve even insinuates that Terry might also be using drugs like his brother. Terry insists that his brother is not involved in drugs either, but the officers do not trust him. They assume that Terry must have earned the money through illegal means and decide to keep the money for themselves. Instead of helping him, they hand him a fake document and tell him that presenting this document in court will get his brother released. Terry takes the document to the court, where he meets a man named Elliot at the counter. Terry explains that he is there for his brother Michael, who is currently in jail. Elliot tells him that if he wants to bail his brother out, he will need to deposit $100. Only then will he receive the necessary bail documents. Terry, however, informs him that he has no money because the police officers confiscated all of it and only gave him this document. Elliot dismisses his concerns, saying that it is not his problem and that Terry must deal with the police if he wants his brother released. After Elliot leaves, a court worker named Summer arrives. Terry explains his situation to her as well. After listening to his story, Summer tells him that this is a case of seizure. The police have confiscated his money. She tells him that he will still need to pay $100 if he wants to bail out his brother. Terry, confused and frustrated, asks her why the police would do this to him. Before Summer can answer, a police officer arrives, and she quickly leaves. Outside, Summer tells Terry that he seems new around here and unaware of how the police and legal system work. She advises him to quickly arrange the money and leave as soon as possible. She then asks what his brother did to end up in jail. Terry explains that his brother was caught with hashish and was imprisoned. However, in 2 days, he is going to be transferred to a different jail where he will be in grave danger. Terry reveals that his brother testified in court against a gangster who had committed a murder. Because of his testimony, the gangster was imprisoned. Now, his brother is going to be transferred to the same prison where that gangster is being held. Terry fears that once his brother is transferred, the gangster and his men will kill him. Hearing this, Summer tells Terry to arrange the money as soon as possible because nothing will happen without it. Terry agrees, but is in a dilemma since the police have already taken all his money. He decides to go to the police station and file a complaint about his seized money. However, Terry does not realize that all the police officers are in on the scheme together. When he reaches the police station, he meets the chief, Thomas, who was responsible for confiscating his money. Thomas has already prepared a false report that places all the blame on Terry. Terry tries to prove his innocence by showing the documents for his car, stating that he had sold the car and received money in return. He pleads with Thomas to at least return $100 so he can bail out his brother, offering to let the police keep the rest. Thomas listens and then tells Terry to come back the next morning at 8 a.m., promising to let him meet his brother. Since Terry has nowhere to go, he spends the night in the woods. The next morning, he arrives at the police station early, only to see that the transport vehicle carrying prisoners has just left. He rushes to Thomas and asks about his brother. Thomas coldly informs him that he is too late. His brother has already been transferred. Determined, Terry follows the prison bus on his bicycle. After catching up to it, he manages to talk to his brother Michael. He advises him to give the police the names of those officers involved in the corruption and to appeal for protection since his life is in danger in the new prison. After returning, Terry calls his boss and asks for money. However, his boss is angry at him for talking to the police about their business. He refuses to help, saying that because of Terry, the police now have information about their operations. With no other options left, Terry goes back to the court and meets Summer again. He tells her that his brother has been transferred and is now in danger. He desperately wants to get him out. Summer pulls him aside and explains that the only way to bail his brother out is by paying the $100. There is no other way. Realizing he has no money, Terry once again goes to Thomas at the police station. This time, Thomas is direct. He tells Terry that he will not get his money back. Thomas explains that the government does not provide the police with enough funding, so they seize money wherever they can. He tells Terry to leave quietly. As Thomas reaches for his gun, Terry quickly grabs it and points it at him. Steve rushes in to help, but Terry overpowers him as well and takes his gun. Holding both officers at gunpoint, Terry forces them inside the police station. Inside, a female officer named Sammy is present, but she is unable to do anything since Terry is armed. Following Terry's instructions, Sammy handcuffs Thomas and Steve. Then, she takes Terry to the property room where all the confiscated money is stored. She retrieves $10,000 and hands it over to Terry. In return, Terry removes all the bullets from Sammy's gun and hands it back to her, ensuring that she cannot shoot him. Terry tells Sammy that he wants to leave peacefully without any bloodshed. Sammy, realizing the situation, decides to cooperate. She takes him to her car and drives him far away. To avoid suspicion, she assures Thomas's men outside that everything is under control. Once they reach a safe distance, Sammy lets Terry go. He gets on his bicycle and rides away. But still, Terry's escape was difficult because now the police were after him. After this, Terry took the money and went to court, and as soon as Elliot received the money, he prepared the bail papers. The judge signed the papers, but before Terry could take them and leave, the police arrived. The police shot Terry with a taser gun, arrested him, and took him with them. However, instead of taking him to jail, they took him to Thomas, as Thomas wanted to meet Terry personally. At the police station, when they pulled up Terry's records, they discovered that Terry was actually a part of the Marine Special Corps. This meant that Terry was not just any ordinary man. He was one of the most dangerous commandos in the U.S. military, someone who could take a life in the blink of an eye. Learning this, Thomas decided to meet Terry in person instead of sending him to the police station. Thomas took Terry near a hospital, returned the remaining money, gave him the car documents back, and told him that even though he had sold his car, he had now been given a similar one to start his business. Thomas had done all this because the very thing Terry feared had happened. When Terry asked Thomas why he was doing all this, Thomas revealed that, as Terry had predicted, his brother's life was in danger. In the new jail where his brother had been transferred, some inmates had attacked him, and he was in critical condition. Terry became extremely emotional upon hearing this because he had already warned them that something like this would happen if his brother was sent to that jail. When Terry went inside to meet his brother, he discovered that his brother was not just injured, he had died. His brother had been stabbed multiple times, leading to his death. After performing the final rites for his brother, Terry decided to leave the city. Summer accompanied him to see him off. As she was dropping him off, she showed him reports on the corrupt police officers and how much wrongdoing they had been involved in. However, Terry was no longer affected by all this. He simply wrote down his number and gave it to Summer before leaving. Later that night, at Summer's house, when she was sleeping, someone entered her home and injected her with a drug before leaving. Seeing a police car outside, Summer realized that the police were behind this. As the drugs took effect and her condition worsened, she quickly grabbed her phone and called Terry for help. Upon learning about this, Terry immediately rushed to Summer's house in his car. When he arrived, he saw Summer trying to wash herself with cold water, as cold water helps reduce the effects of drugs. Terry told her to come to the hospital quickly, but Summer refused, saying that if she went to the hospital, the drug test would appear in her report. However, even though she did not go to the hospital, her report still reached the judge. The next day, when Summer went to court to work, the judge confronted her with the drug report and informed her that she could no longer work there. She was fired from her job. Meanwhile, Terry was still roaming around the city. Steve spotted him and approached him, questioning why he was still in the city when he was supposed to have left. Terry explained that he had returned due to an emergency involving a friend, but was now leaving again. However, Steve wanted revenge for their previous encounter and had a different plan in mind. Steve suddenly pulled out a gun and shot at Terry, but Terry dodged just in time, and the bullet hit his shoulder instead. Seizing the opportunity, Terry attacked Steve, then got into his car and sped away. However, the police were still after him and started shooting at his car. Somehow managing to escape, Terry reached a doctor for treatment. He also called Summer to meet him there. At this point, Terry had made up his mind. He would join forces with Summer to teach these corrupt police officers a lesson. Summer informed Terry that an election was coming up soon, and if Thomas became sheriff, the crime in the city would only increase. Terry asked her how they could get evidence against him. Summer revealed that all the police cars had cameras installed, and the footage from these cameras was stored in one place. Elliot knew more about this. They both went to Elliot, and Summer asked him where all the footage was stored. Elliot refused to tell them, saying that if those people found out, they would kill him. He did not want to go against them. However, after much persuasion from Summer, Elliot gave her a hint that led them to the storage location. Summer and Terry then went to the storage facility where the data chips were kept. Summer found the storage chips containing all the evidence, including a video recording of what had happened to Terry's brother, Michael. As they were about to leave, Summer told Terry to wait in the car while she retrieved something else from inside. Terry agreed and waited in the car. However, while Summer was inside, 2 police officers spotted her, captured her, and took her away. Terry followed their car. The police took Summer away while only one officer remained in the car. Terry rammed his car into theirs, causing the officer to step out. Terry swiftly overpowered him and used his radio to contact the officers who had taken Summer. Terry warned them that if they harmed Summer, he would leak all the evidence stored in the chip worldwide. If they wanted the chip, they had to return Summer safely. Hearing this, the officers agreed and told Terry to meet them at a place called Rebel Ridge. They promised to return Summer there. Terry agreed and told them to wait for him until morning. The next morning, Steve and his men were stationed at Rebel Ridge, waiting eagerly for Terry. But Terry had a different plan. Instead of going there, he drove straight to the police station and rammed his car through the property room wall. As Thomas rushed inside, Terry attacked him. Just then, Sammy entered with a gun aimed at Terry. However, Terry revealed that he had shot Thomas with a fake gun and that Thomas was completely fine. He then handed Sammy the evidence chip because he trusted her. This time, he didn't even remove the bullets from her gun, showing his faith in her. By then, police reinforcements had arrived outside the station. Inside, Sammy pointed her gun at Terry. This was Terry's mistake. Trusting Sammy was a huge error. Now, Terry was completely under the police's control. Sammy took Terry outside and handed the evidence chip to Chief Thomas. Thomas immediately threw the chips to the ground and crushed them under his feet. Steve then prepared to shoot Terry, but one of the officers stopped him, saying they couldn't kill him here. However, Steve was acting on his own, so the officer pointed his gun at Steve. Seeing this, Thomas shot the officer in the leg from behind. Using this distraction, Terry dragged the injured officer behind a car for cover. He then pulled out a smoke bomb, filling the area with thick smoke. Using the smoke as cover, Terry started taking down the police officers one by one. In the chaos, he found Steve and beat him mercilessly. Terry then ran to the car where Summer was being held, turned on the camera inside the car, and drove towards the injured officer. He picked him up and rushed everyone to the hospital. Since Summer had been given a drug overdose, her condition was critical. Meanwhile, Thomas and the other police officers were chasing them. Sammy, however, rammed her car into Thomas's, knocking him out of the way. This eliminated the immediate threat from Thomas. Sammy then informed the rest of the police that everything was under control. Since Thomas's crimes had been recorded on video, the police arrested him. Terry rushed Summer to the hospital, where she was admitted in critical condition due to the drug overdose. She needed urgent medical attention to survive. Terry then returned to his car, took out a DVD, and revealed that all the footage had been transferred onto it. This DVD contained all the video evidence, exposing Thomas's truth to the world. And with that, the story came to an end. How did you like this story? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you again with another new story.